More info on Brandon Aiyuk nearly being traded, Jim Harbaugh back, all of our takeaways from NFL Sunday as the Sunday games are now over, finishing with an overtime matchup. 1 game left to go in week one. That is the San Francisco 49ers and New York Jets. We're getting you ready for it right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We always love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and especially all you new listeners and viewers on YouTube or wherever you listen to this podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code, all lowercase, Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. All right. Nice little overtime matchup there as we go live here post Sunday Night Football. It was the Detroit Lions victorious 26-20 over the Los Angeles Rams. I do want to kind of talk about some rivals of the San Francisco 49ers, Croc, and how they look to you in week one. So let's start there with the Sunday Nighter and the Detroit Lions beating the Los Angeles Rams in overtime. I didn't get scared by much of what I saw. I don't know if it was week one kind of awkwardness. You know, the Rams are a team that plays nobody in the preseason. They started off a little slow offensively, as a lot of teams did in week one. I think we had 7 200-yard passers or something on the entire week heading into Monday Night Football. But what was your takeaway watching the Rams and the Lions, the two of the biggest rivals for the 49ers for NFC supremacy this year?
You know, it was weird just watching all the games around the league today. A lot of up and down play. I saw a lot of poor offensive line play. And it did feel like a lot of teams were using week one as kind of a preseason game to get all their guys ready. And I'm assuming for a lot of these teams, the teams you see in week one won't be the team that you see week 4, week 5, week 6. While others hit the ground fast. Dallas Cowboys look like Dallas Cowboys. They played well offensively. They look good on defense. They had a punt return for a touchdown. So they hit the ground running, but you can't say that for everybody. But I will say this, the two teams that played Sunday Night Football, the Detroit Lions and Los Angeles Rams, I don't know if they had that kind of lagging start. They look like two teams where this is what they'll be all year. I thought they looked good. I thought it was a back and forth challenge. You got to see a little bit of everything where one team had to battle back a little bit more from adversity, and then they came back. Now the other team faced some adversity. Guys made plays all over the field. Cooper Kupp looked like Cooper Kupp. Jameis Williams is coming into his own. Had 5 catches, 120-something yards. The running backs for Lions look sweet. I thought there were a lot of positive things that you could take out of the game if you're a Lions and if you're a Rams fan, even though the Rams ended up falling to the Lions in overtime.
They're feeding Cooper Kupp early in that game. And if you're someone who drafted Puka Nacua like in the first round or early second round of your fantasy league, you probably didn't like seeing that Cooper Kupp's the true number one there for the Los Angeles Rams, and then Puka Nacua getting dinged up as well in that game. The two-headed monster for the Detroit Lions, like that team wants to be physical. They want to run the ball. And let me see what the numbers were. David Montgomery just saw 17 carries and then 11 more for Jahmyr Gibbs. It felt at the end of the game, Jahmyr Gibbs, 3.6 yards per carry to David Montgomery's 5.4. Really felt like, though, Jahmyr Gibbs was the more dynamic player and the offense moved better when he was in the game.
I think a lot of that was because Gibbs had like 5 carries inside the 10 at one point where it was almost like, you know, it was like they needed a few yards for a first down, so they just handed it to him. The Rams were loading the box, and then eventually he had a couple carries to get into the end zone. So I think that stretch of runs right there kind of threw off his average for the game.
Stafford threw a couple of weird balls. One picked, one doinked off the chest of the defenders, but in the end, it was the Lions that won in overtime. So an interesting matchup there. Two teams that the 49ers might see, or the 49ers are definitely going to see the Rams twice, might see the Lions in the playoffs as well. So, so fun matchup there for for the Lions and the Rams. But how about Jim Harbaugh's return? I saw his post-game locker room speech. He gave him the "Who's got it better than us?" Said the worm has turned as it pertains to the Los Angeles Chargers and their fate. 22-10 win over the Raiders. And man, somebody jokingly said, "Look, Jim Harbaugh's got his new JJ McCarthy," and it was a very JJ McCarthy line for Justin Herbert. I know they're a little light on playmakers, but they ran the heck out of the ball, and you saw a Jim Harbaugh team. I was pretty fascinated with the Chargers because it looked like a Jim Harbaugh football team suddenly, and they were good at the things that they were bad at last year with a different head coach, even though a lot of the personnel is the same. J.K. Dobbins going for 135 yards on the ground, Croc, for Harbaugh.
Yeah, I watched that game, or a lot of that game, and it was a very gritty game, and they ended up grinding it out. And you listen to Jim Harbaugh after the game, and I think it's easy to see why he's a coach that just wins a lot of games everywhere he goes. Now, won the national championship last year in college. The Super Bowl eluded him when he was coaching the San Francisco 49ers, but just a culture-changing type coach, whether he was at University of San Diego, Stanford, 49ers, Michigan, because Michigan was not good prior to him showing up, and now the Chargers. You could see why, this guy, he just kind of gets it, and the players get behind whatever it is that he's giving them. So that was it. I'm not as happy to see the downward trajectory of Herbert's passing yards, because for the season I took over 3,600 yards for him. I'm like, oh, he'll get that easily. And then you see him go out there and throw for like 130 yards. I'm like, oh, damn, it might be a little bit more difficult than I thought.
Somebody said the Sea Chickens in first place in the NFC West. Only one win so far in the NFC West. The overtime loss by the Rams. And then I thought the Arizona Cardinals looked pretty good and competitive going on the road, East Coast trip all the way to Buffalo. And look, it's not a December game in Buffalo or anything like that, but the Cardinals held in there and really pressed the Buffalo Bills. It was a 34-28 loss by the Arizona Cardinals, but I was just impressed on the offensive side of the balls. And in the end, Josh Allen won out, 4 touchdowns, 2 throwing, 2 running. I think the Cardinals defense is going to be a problem for them, but offensively, they got an offensive line. They can run the ball a little bit. They've got some playmakers on the outside, and Kyler Murray looked good.
You know, I kind of made a joke about Dortch, and how, our Locked On Arizona Cardinals host was mentioning Dortch as one of the receivers. And then you watch the game and it's like, Dortch is making a few plays, and Kyler Murray, he looked like Murray. He looked healthy. He's moving around, making plays, making throws. That was a great game. I was watching NFL Red Zone, and that game was so good. I said, you know what, let me watch the fourth quarter of this game and focus solely on that. Like, what do the Cardinals look like? How did Buffalo combat that? And even when late in the game, Buffalo went up 2 scores, Cardinals said, no, we're not going to go away. They went down, drove, scored a touchdown, and had an opportunity to potentially win the game late there. But it's a team that is figuring things out offensively. James Conner is still doing a terrific job running and catching the ball. We picked the Cardinals to be last in the division, and we do think that this will be a challenging division for sure. But, you watch a team that has the ability to put up points that way, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to put the Cardinals away than I think most people thought.
But if they are giving up 34 points a game, it's going to be a rough year all the same, even if the offense is ready to go. Right now,
which was a big thing because we didn't know, it's like, who are these defensive players for the Cardinals?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. They got no pass rush, which is really the big thing. And it's a killer. We saw what the 49ers look like with no pass rush. And then all of a sudden in 2019, they get the second pick in the draft. They go Bosa. They add we're using a second round pick for trade plus signing D Ford, who's on the transition or franchise tag or one of those tag and trade sort of scenarios. And all of a sudden they're a Super Bowl team when they added the pass rush. Like it's that's the last ingredient for the Arizona Cardinals that they'll have to address next offseason. Seattle Seahawks, though, currently with the 49ers yet to play, as pointed out in the chat, are in first place. The only win in the West so far, 26-20 win over the Broncos. And to be honest with you, and it's, I don't love to admit it, they looked good out there in those uniforms. Like those are the best Seahawks uniforms. Wouldn't mind seeing them play like the old Seahawks that used to wear those uniforms though.
Right. I didn't put it out there. I saw my guy, I want to say it was Evan Sowers, who tweeted how sweet the uniforms look, and they look great. I didn't have the heart to tweet that out. I'm glad I didn't, because he got posted on like this Seahawks message board thing on social media. So now everybody sees that he, likes the uniforms, which, I mean, they were nice. Now, some of the things I saw in that game, just playmaking ability from Tyler Lockett. Like, he continues to be good. Geno Smith making plays with his legs, ripped off a long touchdown run, doing whatever was needed. I still don't feel like, I don't know. I'd be even a little bit more scared of the Cardinals. I say scared. I mean, just as a team, like if you flipped spots there, like Arizona Cardinals and Seahawks, like bumped up the Seahawks to bumped down the Seahawks, bumped up the Arizona Cardinals, I wouldn't be mad at that. The Seahawks are a weird team because they have a lot of players who I think are talented, but again, week one, we'll see how it comes together. But I could just see the Cardinals being a team that just challenges teams a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, this should have been a blowout. The 26-20, you're playing a rookie quarterback in his first ever game who threw no touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and you squeak out of there with a 6-point win. So it wasn't dominating fashion necessarily. Geno Smith looked kind of so-so, the passing game there. I was surprised they weren't feeding Jackson Smith and Jigba out of the slot a little bit more. It ended up being more of a Tyler Lockett game for them, and really it was a Kenneth Walker game on the ground. He went for 100 yards on 20 carries and a touchdown. By the way, a weird stat for Geno Smith. He became the oldest player in NFL history to rip off a 30-plus yard touchdown run. 33 years and almost 34 years old. And like the next few on the list were like Ricky Williams and since the year 2000, by the way, not NFL history, since the year 2000. It was like Ricky Williams and, all these good running backs. And then Geno Smith is the oldest guy to rip off a 30-plus yard touchdown run at almost 34 years old.
Wow.
Great stat there. The rookie, someone asked about
real quick. That makes me feel old because, when I was a rookie on the Jets, like Geno Smith was a rookie, like he was drafted. And I remember spending that time in the hotel room, with the other rookies and playing Madden with Geno Smith. And that was young, 21, 22-year-old Geno. And now he's considered the old guy.
That means, it does mean you're an old guy. But I'm older than you, Croc. So it's like, you still got that youthfulness about you. So, don't go feeling old too quickly. Next, let's talk a little bit more about our takeaways from week one. And we got to talk 49ers. The injury report is out for the 49ers. Who looks like they're in? Who looks like they're out? Who could be a game time decision? And we got a clue as to what the game plan is for the Jets against the 49ers, and a really interesting Jay Glazer story about the 49ers and how it all came together last minute with Brandon Aiyuk. All that next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Kids are always learning and growing. And we just talked about how we're feeling old, Croc. As adults, sometimes you start to lose that curiosity. And even if you feel youthful, it does happen to the best of us. And, so what's something that you'd like to learn, whether it's gardening, a new language, maybe how to finally beat your best friends in a game of bowling or darts or golf or whatever it is. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder, because your back to school era can come at any age. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is you fill out a brief questionnaire at BetterHelp.com/lockedon, and you get matched with a licensed therapist. So rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. Super easy. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. For example, I think it's going to be a Debo and George Kittle game for the 49ers. You go more than on the Debo and George Kittle receiving yards, or do you lean to the rushing yards for Debo Samuel? Will we see a little bit more wide back in week one? Tons of ways to play, and PrizePicks puts their members first. So withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right. Let's see. Any final thoughts on any of the rivals out there? You did mention briefly that the Cowboys just ran all over the Browns in Cleveland, 33-17. And really the takeaway from that game was how bad Deshaun Watson looked.
You know, the Watson thing, and he was not good. Even some of the throws, I'm like, are you not going to give your receivers an opportunity to catch the ball? Like, just throwing 5, 6, 7, 8 yards out of bounds. His offensive line did not help. I mean, This dude was like under instant and constant duress. And I don't care who you are. I mean, shoot, you could be Patrick Mahomes. We saw this in the Super Bowl against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When you're under that kind of duress, where it's just like my offensive line is almost non-existent, we saw Mahomes look like a complete shell of himself in that game. And for good reason, he was playing with his backup offensive line in that Super Bowl game, right? Well, I think Deshaun Watson was missing his starting tackles, and then they had to replace another tackle. And I think it just got a little too much, and the O-line was overwhelmed. And it made it to where, I mean, it wasn't even that they couldn't function in the passing game. They couldn't run the ball at all. And obviously he doesn't have Nick Chubb right now, but they could not run the ball. They could not pass protect. I think it all is a recipe for disaster. You'd hope that someone like Deshaun Watson would be able to kind of offset some of that a little bit. But I mean, it was a disaster from start to finish. And again, a lot of people, the focus is going to be on him, but that O-line gave him no chance, especially against Dallas Cowboys, who they have a strong defensive line. And I mean, they tried to chip Micah Parsons, and it did not matter. Micah Parsons wrecked that entire game plan.
Man, speaking of taking over, the Pittsburgh Steelers kicked 6 field goals and beat the Falcons 18-10. TJ Watt was everywhere. And I asked the question after the game, I was like, man, is TJ Watt now with Aaron Donald retired, the clear best player defensively in the NFL? I mean, that dude is just ridiculous. And
he had 2 sack strip fumbles, recoveries too, that were overturned. So like, you won't even see that in his stats.
Crazy. And yeah, the Steelers defense is for real. Maybe the Falcons were too early on them. Kirk Cousins, multiple turnovers. And, you know, the Falcons kind of won the offseason and did a lot of stuff, but we've got to wait to see how that comes together there in Atlanta. We were asked in the chat, and then we'll kind of end on this with our week 1 thoughts before we finish up talking about the Niners and the Jets and getting pumped for this Monday Nighter. We were asked about the rookie quarterbacks, and as happens, the results weren't great. They even had some wins though. Like the no starting quarterback in week 1 threw for fewer yards. I think it's like 93 yards than Caleb Williams, but the Bears still won 24-17. Jaden Daniels wasn't great throwing the ball, but he did have a couple of rushing touchdowns too to kind of boost his fantasy stock. But the Commanders are definitely not ready to compete, and they got blown out by the Buccaneers, and Baker Mayfield looked good throwing 4 touchdown passes. By the way, the former Brown, like, can you imagine a Browns fan right now, what they did to get Mayfield out of town and bring in Watson and watch Baker Mayfield look really good somewhere else, and their guy looks awful. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. And you talked about the Atlanta game. Again, offensive line for Atlanta, not doing Kirk Cousins any favor. He's older, can't move as well, coming off of an Achilles injury. And I mean, pressure was in his face constantly. And there was one throw he tried to make. Like, I know you can't see wherever you're trying to throw the ball. He threw it right to the defender, but it was like, what were you even thinking letting that ball go? It was like he was on his tippy toes and like, I can't see, but he's somewhere. I'm just going to toss it in the air. And it was like no receiver within 10 yards of where he was throwing it. I don't think things are going to get any easier for him. I think by mid-year, even though they gave him a ton of money, you might see Michael Penix at some point. But Atlanta, they're in trouble. A team that some people were picking to potentially win the division because of some of the defensive guys they added. And maybe when you're not playing against Watt and Cam Hayward and the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe it looks different versus another team. So if your defense plays that exact same way, even though you're playing against Justin Fields, but if your defense plays that way with some of the signings that you made, maybe it's a little bit easier for your O-line when it's not Watt and those guys, even if your O-line isn't that great.
Just a few more 49ers related things around the league. Ex-Niner Sam Darnold won big over the New York Giants, 28-6. New York Giants head coach Brian Daboll's already being asked about benching their starting quarterback. I mean, it's like, I don't know what the Giants are thinking with what their plan is with Daniel Jones there, but Darnold looked okay, threw a pick, threw a couple touchdowns.
He looked good. He was active. He moved the ball. Like he threw the pick a little bit later in the game, but he started off the game
16 at the beginning of the game. Passing,
I think at halftime, 14-15, 2 touchdown passes. No pick at that point. He was efficient. He did what needed to be done, and he looked good. And you know what? That matched a lot of what I saw with the 49ers. And I know he lost the one game that he started for the Niners last year, week 18. But as I try to tell a lot of people, because they're like, "Yep, see, can't win with them." I'm like, well, they legit took up, like, it's not like he played the whole game with Debo and Kittle and Aiyuk and all these guys. Like, they went on like 2 scoring drives. I think they scored 2 touchdowns with the starters in and kicked a field goal, but the field goal was missed. Took the starters out. Then it got clunky after that. But when he had the guys at his disposal, I thought he looked solid. And then you watch him go to Minnesota, and obviously you get to see what he does for an entire season. Hopefully he plays terrible against the 49ers next week. But it's like, it's good. I'm a USC guy, so it's good to see Sam Darnold kind of, and not just a USC guy. I'm really big on like guys that face a lot of adversity, and I want to see them win. I want to see them overcome that.
Mm-hmm.
So to see him kind of go to probably some dark places, and people, he's a bust and he's this and that, and to see how he potentially has progressed, I think that was pretty cool to see.
Absolutely. The Shanahan tree stock up there continually. Miko Ryan's got a win with the Texans 29-27 over the Colts. Anthony Richardson, though, play of the day. That 65 air yard bomb with not even stepping into it. Just ridiculous. I mean, that dude's a freak, but they did not win that game, even though that was a highlight, I think, of the entire weekend so far. And Dolphins narrowly defeating the Jaguars. And so McDaniel and Miko with the wins. And we'll see. We got Saleh against Kyle Shanahan on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Next, Croc. We know how the New York Jets are going to attack the San Francisco 49ers. One of those Jets players slipped. We'll get into it. Finish up today's Locked On 49ers. This episode of Locked On 49ers is sponsored by Gametime. Gametime has a brand new feature called Gametime Picks, and it makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even faster and easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Get those 49ers tickets, NFL, college football, Major League Baseball tickets, any sports, comedy shows, theater events, and of course, concerts near you. You can find the tickets on Gametime and utilize the Gametime picks to help you filter through those seats. If you're going to a big event with a lot of seats, you get your views from your seat, panoramic style, so you're getting a great seat in the app before you buy. And the all-in pricing, my favorite feature, you toggle that on, you see the totals up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. So, Croc, looking at the pregame conversation around the Jets and the 49ers, Morgan Moses, starting offensive tackle for the Jets, says the Jets can emulate the game plan of his former team, the Ravens, in their upcoming Week 1 tilt against the San Francisco 49ers. So, Croc, thinking back to that Ravens game, and the Ravens did a good job against the 49ers in that game. What does that mean for the Jets attacking the San Francisco 49ers?
Can you rephrase that question again so that I understand it a little bit more?
Yeah, so what's Moses mean? What does Morgan Moses mean by that, saying they're going to utilize what the Ravens did to beat the 49ers so the Jets can beat the 49ers?
One, you have to have the same kind of personnel. And one thing about the Baltimore Ravens, they got big bodies up front on both sides of the ball, like big immovable bodies. Then you have a long, rangy Kyle Hamilton safety who kind of wrecked the 49ers game plan a little bit, right? Like a 6'4" guy covered, George Kittle will, tight ends well, he's covering space well, nice interception in space. Like, do the Jets have, because I could say, you know what, I'm gonna emulate what Michael Jordan does. But if I don't have Kobe Bryant's frame to be able to emulate Jordan the way Kobe was able to, or if I don't have that athletic ability, then it's pointless. So you can try to do what the Ravens did, but if you don't have that same kind of personnel, you're going to fall flat. Now, I think the Jets will be better off doing what they do well. What is it that you guys do? Play to your strengths in your teams. And one thing about the 49ers, I always tell people, they're like, oh, Sauce Gardner, he's going to strap this guy and that guy. Well, who gives a damn? Because the 49ers, they don't really care to throw to the outside guys like that. Everything is about scheme, timing, rhythm, hitting those deep over routes. A lot of it doesn't have to do with just guys being able to consistently beat, one guy out there at corner. It has to be your whole scheme against the 49ers, being able to lock down everything that they do and being able to be a step ahead and be disruptive up front enough to where you get to Brock Purdy and have him do some things that the 49ers don't quite want him to do, throwing off of his back leg, throwing blind the passes, throwing before, too far before receivers are out of the breaks. So if you can't force 49ers to do those things, which the Baltimore Ravens were able to do a great job of that last year, you can't emulate what they did.
Rini asks, who's got the better defense on paper, the 49ers or the Jets coming into this one? The Jets, by a per play, yards per play basis, were the best defense in the league last year. 49ers offense, yards per play, was the best offense in the league last year. Niners, we know, was a really good defense as well. Looking at DVOA, the Niners are the best team in the NFL when you combine the offense and defense. The Jets defense is really good. This is going to be a good game. Like, I can't wait for this one. That's what has me so excited. They don't have Hassan Reddick, though. And if you're not going to get pressure, and the 49ers, I'm sure, are going to do what they can to block Quinnen Williams up the middle. If they can't get pressure on the outside, the 49ers have a plan for the interior guys, and the 49ers usually can take away one guy when they have the opportunity to do so. I like the 49ers' chances, and I think the 49ers defense, without Hassan Reddick and a full-strength 49ers defense, is better to me on paper. But it's close. The Jets have a really good defense, two of the best defenses in the NFL.
They do. I talked about the defense, the guys on the outside. The 49ers are going to attack one cornerback. Like, no, they're not. But when you look at what the heck just happened? All right, when you look at did I get like a virus or something? Sorry, I'm looking at the depth chart. I don't know, all kind of weird stuff start popping up. But I'm looking at the guys on the back end. They just paid Michael Carter a ton of money. You obviously have Sauce Gardner. You obviously have DJ Reed, former 49er, who they really like. And then you get to the linebackers. You see guys like CJ Mosley out there. And we know what some of those guys up front can do. I think for them, it's a guy like Will McDonald. Will he take that next step? After drafting him high out of Iowa State, and he was the guy who, we liked it, but not a ton. Can he be a guy that ends up getting some kind of, pressure on the 49ers and they get some production out of him? They have a solid defense. I feel like they have guys at each level, and that kind of matches kind of what the 49ers are. We know the 49ers guys. There's some guys over there we don't know, right? Like Tony Adams, that safety. I've been keeping my eye on him since he was at Clemson, playing in college or wherever. So there are a lot of guys on that team who I think they've grown with Robert Saleh, and I think that's what makes that defense so good.
By the way, Isaiah Oliver finally making the transition to safety, as I said he should have done years ago. So good job, Rob Saleh, getting that going. Javon Kinlaw, by the way, gained 30 pounds. Did you see that? New York Jet defensive tackle, former 49er, gained 30 pounds. Niners had him getting under like 300 pounds because of his knee problems. He's back up to the large size he was coming out into the draft. Feels great now. We'll see. And, revenge game for him. So, got to get those guys blocked in the interior. That was one of my keys to victory from Friday's show for the San Francisco 49ers. We got to get to the injury report, by the way, Croc, really quick here. So out, D. Winters with an ankle, Yetur Gross-Matos knee, didn't practice all week. They are officially listed as out for this game. Talanoa Hufanga, chance he could play, listed as doubtful. He was limited all week with his knee injury in practice. I'd be surprised if he goes out there and plays, and we'll have to find out who the starting safety is for the 49ers in his stead. A couple of questionable players, Aaron Banks with a finger, limited participant all week, and Christian McCaffrey limited to practice all week with the calf Achilles is listed as questionable. Got a feeling both of those guys are going to play. And then everyone else that was maybe limited at some point during the week ended up being a full participant and is no longer on the status report, on the injury report. So that's what we're looking at. We got a couple of questionables, a couple guys out, and Talanoa Hufanga is doubtful for this one, Croc. So not a terrible injury report. I don't like Christian McCaffrey dealing with the same injury he was dealing with before last season ended, though.
That one is a little shaky. And, I talked to Coach Desi, about that. And, she too said, anytime you start to get a little bit older, and he's not an old guy, but maybe a lot of usage, and you start to attach that Achilles to some of the injury reports, that is something to be a little worried about, especially since it's the calf injury isn't something new for him. So you got the calf injury. Now they're saying, oh, calf/Achilles. That does worry me a bit, even though he feels like, oh, well, if we had a game tomorrow, I can go play. I talked about my Achilles, right? Right now I'm going through Achilles tendonitis, and because I won't stay off of it, it's like not getting better. Well, I can go and run 10 miles tomorrow if I wanted to, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to feel that Achilles a certain way, and that doesn't mean that I'm not at any more or less risk of rupturing or tearing my Achilles. So he can, go in this game and he can play. Where does that put him at risk with what he's dealing with the Achilles injury?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is an interesting one. So is Brock Purdy not a primetime player, Croc? Purdy has never won a Monday night game.
When you say primetime, does it have to just be Monday night? Like,
it's only Mondays.
I saw him win on Thursday night. I've seen him win. I've seen him win, playoff games with all eyeballs on him. So I don't want to say he's not a primetime guy, but maybe something's thrown off with the preparation of Monday night. Or maybe just the teams that he played were pretty damn good. And he has to, figure that aspect of it out. So, but yeah, it's not something that I'm worried about with him. His preparation from all reports is superb. I expect to see a good version of him. Hopefully, though, we just don't see some of the poor offensive line play that we saw throughout, Sunday's slate of games. We don't want to see that with the 49ers offensive line as well.
No, and Chris Foerster, 49ers offensive line coach, said that he hasn't really decided what it's going to look like, and it's possible that they actually rotate Jalen Moore with Trent Williams to keep him fresh. So we'll definitely monitor that situation with the 49ers offensive line. Croc, prediction for Monday Night Football, 49ers Jets. I do want to talk about the note on Brandon Aiyuk really quick, but we got to get the official predictions in for Monday Night Football. What do you got? Niners favored by, I think, 4.5 at home in this one now.
I'll take the Niners and the points.
I will.
And if I had to put a point on it, I'd say 24-20.
I like it. That's good. I had.
You said 4.5?
Yeah, I had Niners by 6, 23-17 on Friday. I'm going to stick with that.
Okay, so I'm taking the Jets with the points, but I have the 49ers to win 24-20.
Niners by 3, but 4.5 is too many points for you. Yeah. Okay. How about this, Croc? And this is something.
49ers going to just beat them by like 17.
They might. Like a Niners blowout seems much more likely than a Jets blowout. No.
Yeah.
By the way, Jordan Love hurt, out 6 weeks. It looks like 3 to 6 weeks for Jordan Love. The initial timetable on his return from his ankle/leg/knee injury, whatever it is there. For Jordan Love. I want to throw that note out there. So obviously another NFC rival of the San Francisco 49ers. According to Jay Glazer of Fox Sports, Croc, Brandon Aiyuk called off a trade to the Steelers in the 11th hour to stay with the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan told Aiyuk that he had to make a decision by the end of practice on the day the deal got done. Aiyuk chose to stay in San Francisco and not go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's how close it came. And I do know from some inside information that that the Steelers thought they had Aiyuk. That's why we kept seeing all those, it's a done deal. The Steelers thought they had Aiyuk for a while. And they was like, okay, then Niners might need to have a third team because they need to try to figure out a wide receiver. And then, they're talking contract again. And then it's like, okay, then the Steelers thought they had him again. And they never gave up, but there was a couple times that they legitimately, like, Mike Tomlin thought Brandon Aiyuk was coming to the Steelers and was like, hey, who's it? Smith, the offensive coordinator. He's like, hey, man, got good news for you, right? Like, we got our guy. And like that's the conversations that were happening for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they thought they had him. In the end, Brandon Aiyuk said, nope, okay, let's do that deal. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay San Francisco 49er. Pretty wild.
You know, when that news broke, I got a lot of messages on social media, and people say, oh, Kyle Shanahan, big win for Shanahan and John Lynch with the way it went down. But, you know, I think ultimately it's a big win for the 49ers. One thing was very clear throughout this process. Brandon Aiyuk did not want to leave the 49ers. He wanted to be a 49er. It just had to be the right offer. And as he said, and he admitted, hey, maybe I made it a little bit more difficult than it kind of had to be. But if the initial offers that they didn't want to move off of was 26 per year, and he ended up getting 30 per year, it sounds like he made out good with whatever decisions he made along the way. Now just go out there, play some good football, and don't get hurt, because you missed the entire offseason.
Yep. In the end, glad they got done. Everyone's smiling. Everyone's happy. Everyone's hugging. Vibes have flipped. Niners ready for Monday Night Football to kick off the NFL season in 2024, finish up week 1 of the 2024 NFL schedule. 49ers, Jets. Can't wait for this one. And of course, Croc and I are going to be back here live after the game, rapid react style, to break it all down. So make sure you are subscribed, hit that notification bell so you know when we are live. And you can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. Locked On 49ers.